gentlemen, welcome to Pittsburgh.
Over the course of a decade, Pittsburgh has transformed itself into a center of the space industry. NASA's Artemis program will send the first people to the moon since 1972. This future is taking shape here on Earth, in Pittsburgh, and in this very building. Welcome to the future.
Here in Pittsburgh, just right up on the North Shore, not far from the Carnegie Science Center and what will forever to me be known as Heinz Field. We come across the Moonshot Museum in what seems to be a standard commercial industrial building. So we will check this out today.
So a construction zone, because they're building spacecrafts for us, as surgery room, because it is at the same level of cleanliness as a surgery room.
The Moonshot Museum is really, really cool. Here it is, a byproduct of Astrobotic, which is a private company here in Pittsburgh, dealing with sending the newest technologies up to space to help for for colonization or other jobs such as space law, healthcare and medicine, biology, space marketing, space tourism. And they have a lot of hands-on exhibits here in this small museum. If you come during the week, you could actually see them working in their green room, or in their clean room, as they work on developing a new large rover that will go up to the moon later in 2025. And you can see some of the technologies that they're working on, including solar panels for work on the moon, hands-on activities. You can create your own, design your own mission patches. This is it's a small place, but it's a really, really cool place. The Moonshot Museum is really neat. Here it is within the campus, the warehouse building, I suppose, for Astrobotic, which is a private company working on building components and technologies that will go into space. They have a display, a prototype of the Peregrine lander that was going to go into space. But then there was a leak and had to get burned out. But they have on display current products and prototypes of equipment that they plan on sending up to help with future research missions, to help with allow for sustainable colonization practices or research practices on the moon, to serve as a base to go to other reaches of space a lot easier than launching from Earth. And they also are developing small cube rovers that smaller companies can rent or use or lease from Astrobotics or other companies for smaller research missions that do not require additional launches and expenses and things along those lines. So the changes in the development of the space industry are on full display at the small Moonshot Museum in Pittsburgh. Really cool. Highly recommend it.
But here in Pittsburgh, the push to explore doesn't just stop at the moon. It goes even further. So getting to the moon is just the beginning and what we're doing now, but it's also about where we're going next.
And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
Set pressure, it'll shoot our pencil out in, and we'll
Asteroid air hockey. Here at the Carnegie Science Center, a nice wall painting demonstrating the size of the sun compared to planets such as Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, all the planets in the solar system, and some type of time and relative dimension in space. And a tiny alien hidden inside. That alien's got two hearts. Here is another giant chunk of the meteor from Meteor Crater in Winslow, Arizona. You find these pieces everywhere. And this gives you an idea as to how huge that thing was that created that crater out there. Fascinating. Another meteorite. More softer and more rocky, not as metallic as the one from Meteor Crater. So this one is protected. Can't touch this one. This was donated by a professor from the University of Pittsburgh who led the Antarctic Search for Meteorites program for 20 years in the South Pole. You are looking at a sliver of Mars. This sliver of Mars was discovered to be from Mars based on the gases inside the bubbles, which were confirmed to be that as the atmospheric data compared to the 1976 Viking lander on Mars, confirming that this meteorite came from Mars. This is really cool. This Mars section here is really neat. It takes the information of what we know from Earth climatology, and assuming that Earth climatology over the eons could be very similar to Mars climatology based on studies and science that has already taken place from Mars landers, from atmospheric studies, so on and so forth, to see how we could eventually, as humans, better help sustain ourselves, but also potentially make the red planet green for future endeavors. Combining climatology, biology, mineralogy, is that a word? Earth science, geology, volcanology, all sorts of sciences working together of how to create life on Mars. So this is an interesting exhibit. You could consider this like the current science fiction of the near future, where the idea of human habitation, space tourism, space exploration, space colonization, first of the moon and of Mars, and if people, through bioengineering and other scientific studies going on now, eventually can live on Mars, what would those families or occupations, or what would that life be like with less friction, gravitation being different? So therefore, how bodies would be different, how medication would be different, how the human body would respond to long-term life in space and becoming Martian. Time works differently. Daylight, sunset, sunrises, years. It's really, really interesting things to think about. What would education look like on Mars? The jobs would be different. Biology and botany would be different. What would communities look like? Would things be equitable? Would things not be equitable? Would it be remote learning? In-person learning? Combination of both? How would you transport from one place to another for in-person education? Interesting questions. Just fascinate the mind. These are the types of questions that inspired the H.G. Wells as the founder of science fiction genre, and all of those that came after him, and it still maintains today. What would it be like? And just let the imagination run wild, and you never know what these ideas can lead to. Your proteins on Mars. How would that work? Would you have to have ranching on Mars? Would it all be genetically engineered or modified foods? Will some of it be grown naturally? What is the difference between genetically engineered and naturally grown foods? Will we have enough proteins? Will we grow our own animal foods and have crickets? Interesting. The Martian Garden.
And of course, in order to get to Mars, you have to learn about the body and robots and how bodies and robots can work on Mars.
Linus, why do you fart? The Robot Hall of Fame. Here's Hal. B9 from Lost in Space, Robbie from the Forbidden Planet. And the Iron Giant. Wally is soon to be coming here, is my understanding. And then, of course, you have R2-D2 and C-3PO. These are replicas. They are not real robots. They are not the original props or whatnot. But the committee that works with the Robot Hall of Fame has put these together for posterity, for science fiction robotics. Karate. Cha! Wheelchair racers definitely need some upper body strength here. How does slow motion work? Well, here at the Carnegie Science Center, you can do your own slow motion sports. You go through, pick an activity, record it, and compare yourself to others.
2, 1, go!
May the force be with you. A lot of science centers have these water type features about the water cycle, how rivers go, boats, locks, and things. But I like this one because the legs, duck feet. this Pullman parlor car, courtesy of George Pullman and Andrew Carnegie. Of course, during the age and era of railroads. So at the Carnegie Science Center, a massive model railroad throughout Pittsburgh.
But one of the most unexpected ways to explore Pittsburgh is right here. This massive model railroad isn't just a display, it's almost a miniature map of the city and its surroundings, packed with landmarks, neighborhoods, and pieces of Pittsburgh's story. You'll spot everything from historic sites, local favorites, some old ballparks, iconic restaurants, inclines, even a few places that we'll be visiting later on. It's not a modern overview, but it gives you a surprisingly good sense of how everything fits together and maybe a few ideas of where to go next. Pittsburgh's story is one of innovation, from the missions being built today to the future that we're imagining on Mars, to the breakthroughs that helped build this city and the nation.
This is industrial Pittsburgh during the early 20th century. And as you see, here is Westinghouse Research Laboratories, and that is an atom smasher, an early nuclear particle accelerator created due to the interest and development of physics. The building stood until 2015, although it had shut down long before then. But the building had finally met its end, its demise. But the Atom Smasher itself is still there, now laying on its side. It's no longer mounted on a roof. Just in a nondescript residential neighborhood in Forest Hills outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Right here, we have barbed wire fence and a locked gate. Some piles of bricks, old piles of bricks of the remains of buildings, remains of structures that were here. Right there is the world's first industrial Van de Graaff Atom Smasher. From Westinghouse, it used to sit on top of a building. It used to stand 5 stories tall on top of a building. But when nuclear energy and nuclear physics was first being actively introduced, worked on, manipulated for manufacture, for energy purposes, weapons purposes, whatever the case may be, there was a need for Atom Smasher, and Westinghouse was on the forefront of that technology. The very first industrial Van de Graaff Atom Smasher. That thing is big. I'd have to assume that everything is safe for it to be here. Westinghouse was here until the, I forget the year, but I'll put it on their screen for you. The building itself was here significantly longer than after the Westinghouse company ceased their operations here. I did find a wide open gate. Walked in. Just because the gate was wide open. I did not see any no trespassing signs or anything along those lines over here. Obviously some folks have come on in and left their tags on the Atom Smasher. I do wonder too what it would be like to be an atom, being smashed around. I am not up to date on my Van de Graaff Atom Smasher technology, so if anybody in the comments happens to know the difference between a Van de Graaff Atom Smasher versus the particle accelerators that are in use today, let me know. So the Westinghouse building, this sat on top of a Westinghouse building here. The building itself is gone. Why this is still here, I don't know. I'd like to know why, and if anybody knows the story, why this is still here to just sit and decompose and rot, as opposed to being refurbished and restored and placed in some type of museum. There are plenty of them here in Pittsburgh. This could go with the Science Center, this could go with the Heinz History Center, this could go anywhere. Why it is still here in this vacant lot. If anybody knows, let me know. Maybe we'll call him Westy. Or we could just call him Adam. I think Westy or Adam needs a home.
Pittsburgh may have once had a reputation as a city in decline after the fall of steel, but today it's a place that's reinvented itself, steeped in tradition, with its eyes firmly on the future. And there's a lot to do here. We're only just getting started. So follow along as we explore the sights, the sounds, the food, the sports, the history, and the hidden gems of the Steel City. We'd love to have you along for the ride. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on what's coming next. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.